Hey everyone, it's Nightharo here, and today I want to talk about playing an Alchemist. This is a really cool class that I wish would have existed years ago. My brother actually wanted to play a Goblin Alchemist. His name was Plorks. We ended up playing it, but this is years ago and we couldn't even play in 5e. We ended up going with GURPS. GURPS is a very rules-heavy system, and it wasn't a great fit for the table because not everybody's into as complex or as rules-heavy games as I tend to be. So anyways, in this video, I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about it. I'm not going to try to go through like a full guide. Taron has actually done one on his channel. It's only about 30 minutes long if you want something like that, and other people have reviewed it. I just want to talk about why I think it's so cool. I'm going to talk about some key features here and I just want to sell you on it and see if it's something that you might be interested in, is the idea. So to start off with, what makes an alchemist? Why would you want it in your campaign? So this could be very good for a low magic setting where you either have some magic or alchemy is purely a science. You flavor it how you like, I'm sure. And the other thing is it doesn't feel like a magic user. These aren't spells by another name. The other thing is it's also not an artificer. That's one class that I think a lot of people, including myself, really like the idea of, and sometimes feel like it doesn't quite tick all the boxes right. The Alchemist obviously is different, but I think it does tick a lot of those same boxes that you kind of want. Like this is magic as science, or this is, in this case, alchemy as science. Sure, you might have some magical ingredients and stuff like that, but this is being able to quickly make something in combat and still have it fun and balanced and everything else. The other thing I really like about this is that while Taron does need to modify and pull in some rules from Xanathar's Guide to Everything, I don't find it to be overly confusing or burdensome. I think it's fairly streamlined. In the PDF itself, it's very well written. It is, almost indistinguishable from much of the official content from Dungeons & Dragons, Wizards of the Coast, and it includes some extra stuff that I think are really nice touches. One of the things that I thought was great that I don't remember seeing in like the old school stuff, maybe they've added with some of the newer stuff, but he makes sure to point out, in addition to like having a quick start guide, suggestions for stats, a little blurb about like what an alchemist is like, a little story section, he also includes some suggestions and just kind of ideas of how it's going to play. And that's basically like a midline character that can be in melee sometimes, but doesn't always want to be in the front line, and then has a lot of control. And then there are several subclasses you can pick. You can actually make a healer with this. You can go more melee focused if you want, increasing your armor proficiency to heavier armor. But most of the subclasses and the main class itself is very, control oriented, good AoE kind of things, damage, and also just control the battlefield. Just some basics of the class here. So you start off obviously knowing alchemy, of course, and then Taron has provided quite a few different recipes and new alchemical items in the back of the book. Also, I would say that this is something that's very easy to come up with more ideas for in play, and I'll talk about that a little bit later, or I might even do that in a separate video. But you start off knowing all the basics, Alchemist Fire, that kind of stuff, and you actually get a few more, and then each time you level up, you gain a new formula that you know. And of course, that can be something as a GM that you maybe hold off and have the character gain in play. And if you're already doing, depending on how you do XP, if you're already doing milestone XP, it's kind of appropriate to just put that in the reward at that particular milestone, and it works really good there. And it doesn't feel so much like, hey, I just learned this formula. Although a character could be experimenting and learning it along the way. Again, a ton of options for role-playing there. A couple of things that have changed. As a bonus item, you can combine two alchemical ingredients, or two alchemical items, so you can make like Tanglefoot and Alchemist Fire, combine them, it'll stick someone in place and light them on fire at the same time. That's really cool, especially with some of the extra and new items that Taron introduces with this class. Another one is Potency. So this allows you to not impose disadvantage when you're using melee or ranged weapons in melee, which is really nice because it kind of needed to be changed honestly, for ranged, for thrown weapons anyways. It's not like you're using a bow in melee, so I really like that change. At second level, you can choose your subclass. You actually can make a healer, an apothecary, with this. You can also choose to make a more melee-focused frontline fighter, if that's what you want to do, with a little bit higher armor proficiency. And then the main core of the class, though, is going to again be that midliner. You are going to be able to have a lot of control of the battlefield with these different alchemical items. Or if you want, you can go just the full-on damage dealer route, and we'll talk about that more a little bit later. Other things that are of note, Eureka is one advantage you get pretty early on. I think it's 3rd level, and it allows you to actually quickly make up a potion as a bonus action to be able to use it in combat, which is cool because I'm sure many of you are like, well, how do you use alchemy in combat? And I really like this. It goes away after a minute, so basically it lasts as long as combat. Later on, that goes to 10 minutes. So if combats are nearly adjacent, you're dungeon crawling or something, maybe you can use it a little while after. I think this going inert and being able to mix it up is just so fun. And I also think like the RP of this, how we would flavor it is that if you mix something up, it would be unstable, right? And so like you either use it or it's going to blow up or something. And I kind of like all the different roleplay opportunities that kind of provides you. I'm not going to go through all the class features here. Things level up and they scale appropriately with level, but those are kind of some of the base ones. So let's go ahead and talk about some class specialties. So there's the animator. So this is kind of like a pet class. You can make a homunculus or a little golem that you can carry around with you. A million ways you can flavor that and be really fun. You can also modify it so it's better at certain things, either in combat or utility, and you can actually kind of change it and modify your homunculus so that it's good at different things at different times. So if you know you're going to a big battle, something like that. You can also animate a skeleton as a construct, not as a necromantic thing, which I think is really cool. And then at higher levels, you can combine those to make, a big chunky beefy boy in combat if you want. There's just so many role-playing opportunities with that, a million. So really like that. I think it's really, really fun and really well done. Again, it's going to scale with levels, so it's going to be really appropriate even at higher levels and still be functional. Not like your typical, base familiar kind of thing. The second option is an apothecary. This is basically a healer. Really like this idea, especially for low mana areas where you're using potions and other things. You can also make some animal friends with this subclass, so that's really fun. You can stay true to kind of the general alchemist as well. This is very control oriented. I think it's called a crystallographer, which you can create walls, create difficult terrain, like larger and more plentiful than you could with just something like a Tanglefoot bag, and some really fun control options there. There's also the Fulminar. Hopefully I'm saying that right. This is Plorix here. And this is a goblin, or I say goblin bomber. It's a goblin bomber. That's what I'm calling it. Obviously you don't have to be a goblin, but the idea is that you're just a really big AoE damage and blowing stuff up and really fun. Just so many ideas for RP with the Fulminar, like too many to count. There's also, and I'm going to probably say this right, Salbinist is what I have. Hopefully I'm saying that right, or maybe it's autocorrected to something weird. But this is, if you want to play Witcher, it can have a very different flavor, and I don't think that's, it doesn't feel like this is complete carbon copy, but you could absolutely play a Witcher with this, where you're drinking a lot of potions, modifying your own combat, and also the Salbinist is going to be good in melee combat. You get heavier weapon proficiencies, armor proficiencies with this. I'm sure there's some multi-class options as well if you wanted to do that, but I think it's really cool and a lot of fun if you want to play kind of a Witcher type character. And then the last one is a toxicologist. Now this, I know there's many of you might be rolling your eyes or being like, oh God, a poison doesn't work. There's some modifications to this and modifications, some special things that the toxicologist can do to make sure that your poisons do apply to creatures, because immunity to poison is like one of the most common things in D&D 5e. So it still ends up being a really cool class. So don't think that it's like, oh, that's the underpowered one. There's still some interesting stuff there. But I just think that the coolest thing about this is that you have one class, and you can go from healer to frontline damage dealer if you wanted to. A ton of control, a lot of options here. And every single one of these things, you're talking about making alchemical items, mixing them together, and then looking for potions. There's just so many ideas in play for how to deal with this and how to make this fun for your character. Whenever I played with someone who's playing an alchemist before this class existed, they were constantly looking for different magical herbs, anything they could mix together. They were constantly trying stuff with, and through various RP ideas and everything else. And also trying to find different, recipes or, reverse engineering a potion or item that you found somewhere. There's just so many ideas for doing this. And you know, it can be hard with casters, right? Because like if you have them make a spell, you've got to balance it. You know, is this going to be their go-to spell if it's too powerful? And you can really kind of mess up a campaign pretty quickly with this. I think with the Alchemist, it really offers you a lot of opportunity. First of all, Taron's outlined a ton of things in this book, in this PDF that just go through, and you can order a physical book. But he's gone through and just outlined so many things that you don't need as a GM to be making up stuff, but you can, you know, add in little touches here. Like maybe you find an ingredient that will empower one of your magic items, right? Or one of the alchemical items. So maybe it adds an extra hit dice or allows you to max out one hit die, but it's only one use and you only found one of this, you know, rare herb or something like that. So there's so many ideas for rewards in play and stuff like that. And you know what? I could go on about this for a little bit. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it in the next video. So check it out here, or wherever I put it. But why don't we just catch you in the next one and we'll talk about it then. Thanks for watching.